Okay, whenever you're ready, Chair Poutre.
All right, thank you so much, Bill. All right, I'm going to call this April meeting of the Commission for Arts and Culture to order. Thank you all for joining us on Zoom. And I'm going to ask the colleagues on my colleagues on the commission to please leave your video on as much as possible throughout the meeting, because we want to be as accessible as possible to the public. And we do have members of the public who are able to watch this live as well as recorded later on YouTube. So let's do that if we can. I'm going to take a quick roll call to confirm commissioner attendance. So when I call your name, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Frank, Commissioner Blevins, Commissioner Bossler,
Present.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner DeCenzo,
Present.
Commissioner Hughes,
Present.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Meza,
Present.
Commissioner Nwana, Commissioner Opstead,
Present.
Commissioner Smith. I see you, but I didn't hear you, Rebecca.
Present.
Thank you. Pardon me. Commissioner Schonbrun, Commissioner Whooper.
Present.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Your attendance has been noted.
What did he say?
So joining us today is Arts and Culture staff.
Oh, it's called a Zoom.
Excuse me,
I
Jean.
know that, but what are you doing it for?
Jean, could you silence your video, please?
Yes. Took on my.
Thank you, Jonathan. So thank goodness. Joining us today is Arts and Culture staff, including Executive Director Jonathan Gloss, Chief of Civic Arts Strategies Christine Jones, Senior Public Art Manager Chuck Miller, Arts and Culture Funding Manager Carla Centeno Aguirre, Project Manager Bel Reza, Civic Art Project Manager Laura Bullock, and new today, Diana Agostino, who will be invited later in the meeting. Also recognizing representatives from the city's Office of the City's Attorney and the city's IT department. I am now going to share with us all our mission. Pardon me, I'm working on memorizing it, so I'm going to do it today. Our vision is that we are expanding our world by celebrating creativity in San Diego. Our purpose: the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture serves in an advisory capacity to the Mayor and City Council on promoting, encouraging, and increasing support for the region's artistic and cultural assets, integrating arts and culture into community life, and showcasing San Diego as an international tourist destination. Thank you. I'll probably never be as good as Jason at that, but I'm trying. I'm going to ask Belle to give us a rundown on how the meeting works and how you will be handling public comment. So Belle, can I turn it over to you, please?
Thank you, Chair Poutre. Good morning, commissioners. Just quickly, in an effort to provide greater accessibility, members of the public may join the meeting as webinar attendees in order to provide virtual, non-agenda, and agenda comment in real time. Commissioners, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending the meeting as panelists, and the meeting will function for them identically to a typical Zoom meeting. Please remember to stay muted when you are not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. You'll also see the chat window button. Please keep your chat window open at all times, as you will be using the chat window to signal when you'd like to speak. We do recognize there is a hand raising function. However, we request that you type speak in the chat window for the record, and Chair Poutre will acknowledge your request in order. When wanting to make a motion, second a motion, or participate in a discussion, please type speak in the chat box, and Chair Poutre will call on you in that order entered. Please refrain from using the meeting chat for anything other than signaling that you'd like to speak in order to comply with Brown Act. Thank you. Chair Poutre.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to non-agenda public comment, and the public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form, which is accessible on the Commission's website. And members of the public can also join this meeting as webinar attendees. And if members of the public have submitted comments in public, in writing via the web form, they will be read aloud by staff. That is per city comment protocol. And I will call on Bell to read any non-agenda public comment that we have, and also poll anybody in attendance in the meeting who would like to make a comment. Bell?
Thank you, Chair Boutre. We did not have anything for non-agenda submitted, but to those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to comment. I will enable you to speak and send you a prompt to unmute yourself in order. When I call your name, please state name for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to provide comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. If you are joining via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. When I call on you, please press *6 to unmute. Please raise your hand now if you'd like to provide non-agenda public comment. Okay, John, go ahead.
Good morning, commissioners and commission staff. I'm John Hyken. I'm executive director, co-founder of Fern Street Community Arts, more well known as Fern Street Circus. Just wanted to give you all a quick update, and also a shout out to Jean, who's a wonderful, has been a wonderful presence in arts and culture in San Diego. And the circus is prospering. We did a huge amount of performance in the summer and fall at drive-through food distribution lines. We have continued to teach circus to our core students online on Zoom. And the biggest thing is that we are part of a collaborative that is activating an empty space at 41st and University. It's a 300-foot by 100-foot empty space that's co-owned by City Heights Community Development Corporation. There is a public art installation that is having an opening tomorrow evening. There was an article yesterday about it in the Union Tribune, organized by Jim Bleisner, who's a longtime activist and artist. But we are creating a roughly 100 square foot outdoor circus community center. And we last Sunday put up a 30 by 40 foot canopy that was came from funding from Las Patronas. We're going to be able to teach there once it's safe. We are going to be able to rehearse and do some performances, and it's a huge change for us to be able to have a space that we can program. So I'm looking forward to all that and all the logistics that go with it, and would love to have all of you come out when we have a public opening, which will be sometime when it's safe. But anyway, thank you all for everything that you do, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no more, Chair Boutre.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that public comment. I hope everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from last month's meeting. That was on March 26th. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? If you would like to, please type "speak" in the chat box, and I will call on you. And this is to make a motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Brown?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Bossler?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Opstead, were you seconding?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any comment to make about the minutes? Any changes? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to go ahead and take a vote. So I'll call your name and you'll respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. And do remember, you don't have to have been at the meeting to vote or discuss the minutes. So Commissioner Frank, Commissioner Blevins, Commissioner Bossler.
Present.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown,
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Meza.
Yay.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nwana. Commissioner Opstead.
Yay.
Commissioner Smith.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun. Commissioner Whipper.
Yay.
And my vote is a yay. Thank you, everybody. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our next action item, the fiscal year 2022 Arts and Culture Programmatic Budget Distribution. That's a mouthful. I'm going to ask Jonathan to walk us through this, please. Jonathan.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, commissioners. Great to see you all. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. So just a brief reminder, we show this to you often during the fiscal year, but just as a reminder, we are right here in April. So as you know, in February, City Council members disseminated budget priorities. All of those priorities are then distilled and shared with both the Chief of Staff, or excuse me, Chief Operating Officer and the Mayor's Office. At the same time, staff is on the operations side, where we reside, are building basic budgets. As you know, the city received a sizable allocation of relief funds from Washington. I won't go into great detail about the overall city budget. However, that allocation did allow some fundamental programs to be kept in place. There's considerable information on the city's website about the overall budget, as well as a video of the mayor, excuse me, I'm so sorry, Pollen, where he explained his priorities in the budget. So the mayor's proposed annual budget was disseminated on the 15th. You're being asked today to make recommendations back to staff and city council on the programmatic budget allocations, and we'll get to that in just a second. Just as a reminder, May 15 is when the revised budget goes public. And then city council has their final deliberations over the next few weeks with adoption of the budget in early June. Next slide, please. So our budget today is as it was last year. Excuse me. So we've been allocated just under $5,800,000 for special promotional programs. The allocations are about $700,000 for CCSD, just over $5 million for OSP. There is something called an allocation adjustment. That is, excuse me, that is something that is sometimes used to augment our baseline budget with additional funding. That was not included in the budget in FY21, nor is it included in the FY22 budget, simply because of the stress on the overall city budget. And then the mayor and city city council allocations, which were not included in the FY21 budget, are not included in this budget as well. You may recall that there was $400,000 that had for a number of years been included in the budget. Those were funds for the arts that went to each city council district. We ultimately, in the commission, managed the contracts for them. They made the decisions on how they wanted to utilize those funds in their council districts. So at the end of the day, what this means is we're carrying forward last year's budget for our funding program from FY21 to FY22. Next slide, please. And staff is recommending that we, for continuity, we continue with the same allocation between the two funding programs. So about 12% to CCSD and about 87%, about 88% to OSP. The reason why we've recommended that, again, is for continuity. And when I say continuity, what I mean is general operating is the most difficult funding. So we continue to prioritize that while remaining consistent with CCSD funding. Next slide, please. This is just a reminder of the pie, as we call it. So FY20, pre-COVID, the vast majority of the funding went to OSP, the second largest amount CCSD. We did have Mayor City Council allocations. We were able to distribute or direct some funds to the Public Art Fund. That's for maintenance of the collection. We're holding off on that for another year. Excuse me. And then Horton Plaza Theater Foundation, we have thankfully been able to move that over to administration. So those funds that we used to direct over to Horton Plaza Theater Foundation used to come out of the funding budget. It now comes out of administration. So that's a bonus for this budget, our funding program. Next slide, please. With the onslaught of COVID, last year we went back to basics, just CCSD and OSP. Next year, or excuse me, next slide. And we're suggesting the same thing again for this year. Next slide, please. Certainly building back out of COVID, we hope to have opportunities to build not just the funding program, OSP and CCSD back to pre-COVID, but that we have opportunities to allocate funds to the very smallest organizations, individual artists, etc. Those are the kind of things we're working on through our DEI initiative, excuse me, that we want to dig into with the Policy and Funding Committee beginning in May. So we see a lot of opportunities moving forward. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the budget, we feel like remaining constant with CCSD and OSP is our best path forward for this year. With that, Chair Portray, I am happy to answer any questions, turning it back over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Jonathan. Alrighty. I believe the way we want to go forward is someone make a motion, we'll second it, and then we'll have discussion. So I see Commissioner Bossler has asked to speak. Are you making the motion to get us
I was
going?
hoping to ask a question of Jonathan before a motion is made. Is that okay?
I guess. I mean, the procedure is typically the motion, second, and then we discuss. Jonathan, do you want to go ahead and answer a question first?
Sure, happy to.
So the question is, when you look at the funding for the current fiscal year, beside what it is you're asking in terms of the budget, given what the mayor has proposed, is there a slide that shows the side by side of what the difference would be in terms of the overall amount for both OSP and CCSD? I know you were wanting the same percentages, if you will, of the overall funding, but how the funding compares overall is the question.
Oh, absolutely. Can you go back to, let's do 3 slides, Belle. Keep going. 1 more. This is literally exactly what we had last year, which is why we didn't do a side-by-side. So this is the exact amount of funding that we had last year for the funding program.
But there is a cut to the Arts and Culture Commission budget overall, right? So that cut would come from where?
No, actually there's not. And thank you for asking that question. As you all know, the Department of Cultural Affairs was created in the finance department last year. That was a merger of the special events and filming and arts and culture. What we've done, and that created obviously a larger department. What we have done moving forward is we've moved special events and filming out of cultural affairs back into an independent office, leaving arts and culture, the arts and culture budget residing inside cultural affairs. And while we're talking, I'm sure Christine Jones can pull up a slide to share. I believe you can do that, Christine, that just shows the budget of the department. Ultimately, it's exactly the same. We didn't suffer any losses, any additional losses on the programmatic side or the staff side. There was some reductions in administrative budget that we don't control. That was basically rent, some union-based salaries, that kind of thing that literally finance department controls, and it's just slid into our budget. But as far as what we control, we didn't lose anything. We didn't gain anything. They kept us constant. And if you'd like to see a slide, Christine, can you pull one up? Is that possible?
Yeah, let me just do.
I guess what I'm trying to illuminate is that historically what we would see would be the overall commission, including the staff budget, right? So we would see how many positions there were. We would see the amount allocated for all of the staff. And then we would see as a piece part of that, all of the, basically the funds that are going to be granted to the nonprofits. And so what has been presented here today is the important piece part of the funds that are going to be granted, but not the overall budget. And what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that now that administrative side of the budget resides within a larger budget. And so what you're asking us to vote on today is only the piece about the funds that get awarded to the organizations. Is that right?
That's right. And that's a practice that we started last year when the Department of Cultural Affairs was created. Christine, this isn't exactly it.
This is the slide that demonstrates and shows the administration budget for cultural affairs as presented and proposed by the mayor. So you'll see here that we're projecting 7 employees, which is what we have now. with a non-personnel and personnel budget of 1.8 million. So this shows basically the restructure. Otherwise, as Jonathan indicated, we're pretty much steady from last year in terms of our department budget.
So there's 7 full-time staff, of which 6 slots are filled. Is that what this says for
So
arts staff?
This basically demonstrates the restructure. So when we restructured with cultural affairs, we brought in special events and filming staff. So there were 13 under cultural affairs, arts and culture staff, as well as special events and filming. And this year, as Jonathan indicated, there's a restructure. So 6 staff people that are special events and filming are moving out of cultural affairs, which leaves our staff, which is 7 right now. So this basically just is illustrating the restructure of the department.
Christine, can you go to the previous slide? Yeah, this is where we see, this is the kind of detail that we see internally that you'll see in the budget book. This all reflects adjustments to the budget. It looks like these are reductions on arts and culture. They're not. This is, the first line is moving special events and filming staff out of cultural affairs. Non-discretionary adjustment. These are utilities, insurance, and rent. The biggest chunk here is the reduction in our rent because we've moved out of Ash Street back to the old facility. And then support for information technology is also moving IT costs related to special events and filming back out of cultural affairs. Why don't you go a slide earlier?
There isn't a slide earlier to
Okay.
There's the critical expenditure slide, which just shows adjustments to salary.
So this is, excuse me, this is what I referenced earlier, that these are, excuse me, these are adjustments that we don't control. This is a composite of everything from projected union salary increases, cost savings due to what the cost of staff retiring or leaving the city. We don't control any of this. This is literally a line item that finance controls, and it's just dropped into every department budget. So again, it's kind of a composite of everything that happens from the financial perspective in the personnel department.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Bossler?
It's just a little challenging because it's not really apples to apples because there's so many moving parts. So I was just trying to figure out an apples to apples in terms of what we'll call the Arts Commission that clearly resides in a different place now, right? And is it the same? Are there any downward trends in any area for the overall, including the staff portion? And
Yeah.
what we're being asked to move forward today is only the portion of the budget that pertains to the granting. Just wanting to clarify those items.
Right. And of course, we, as Jonathan says, they have no control over those admin items and number of staff and all that sort of thing. So that we don't have any role to play in that piece of it. The role we have to play is this part in deciding the entire pie of funding. Where does that go in terms of the categories? Am I right, Jonathan? Is that's what this action item is?
Yes, ma'am. And bottom line is no increases and no decreases. Staff remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
funding program remains the same from last year. Last year is when we obviously took a very big hit. The funding program was substantial, 48% of hit. So we were fortunate that it did not take an additional hit. Excuse me. We did not get an additional allocation to the Public Art Fund to manage the public art collection. Excuse me, simply because given the priorities of the mayor's priorities and the chief operating officer's priorities of keeping staff as whole as possible, keeping parks funded as much as possible, keeping libraries open as much as possible. The collection management isn't funded this year. We can get through another year without any funding to manage the collection. After that, we'll have to start seriously looking at maintenance of the collection. Commissioner Senzo has very nicely sent us images of some needs on the collection. We're fully aware of needs of conservation on the pieces in the collection. We just can't we'll be able to get to a few of them this year, not at the veracity that we would like to.
Okay, that's all very helpful. At this point, I'm happy to make the motion to move forward with what's on the screen right now of the fiscal year 22 proposed arts and culture programmatic budget distribution.
Thanks, Commissioner Bossler. May I please have a second? I also want to make note, Commissioner Frank has joined the meeting. Is anybody like to go ahead and type speak and second the motion? Commissioner Hughes?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Opstead, were you, did you have a comment? Or thank you. All right, we've talked about this a little bit. Does anybody have any further questions or feelings about this motion and the information that Jonathan shared with us? Okay, I do not see any, so go ahead, please,
Sure,
Commissioner Opstead.
And Jonathan or Christine, you'll probably be able to answer this. The nearly $6 million that we are approving, this commission has had funds almost twice what it is now, which I understand considering the situation, but those are usually provided by TOT. Do we know where this almost $6 million is coming from? And where I'm going with it is as we are so dependent on TOT, if at some point there is a certain percentage of the city's budget that is dedicated towards this, should the economy go up and down as it normally does, we're old enough to understand cycles. So just wondering where $6 million is coming from.
Yeah, as with every year, we are 100% funded by TOT. Staffing, administration, funding, public art fund, 100% TOT.
Well, then I guess I'd say make sure all your friends make vacation plans in San Diego to help us out. Are there any other questions? You're supposed to type speak in the box there, Commissioner Hughes. Oh, there it is. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's because of I seconded the motion and then I wanted to make a comment. It looks like just one. I won't hide my disappointment. This is it's a kick in the stomach having this low an amount. I appreciate the hard work that Jonathan and Christine and the entire staff did for the apportionment of the funds that we are being given. It's interesting that the mayor's budget, the language used in the budget document does not match the numbers. The language used is very aspirational. There's an acknowledgement of the power of arts and culture to heal our city, to really play a role in bringing us back stronger and better than ever. But the dollar investment does not match that. So I just charge all of us with using this as an opportunity to really push forward with the city council on getting them to slate penny for the arts, because when the city comes back stronger than ever, when every person wants to come vacation here and then they pay their TOT with their hotel room, I want arts and culture, which is going to figure out ways to present performances and cultural engagement. They're going to draw people to the city. I want them to get their earned piece of the pie.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Is anybody else? Rebecca, Commissioner Smith?
So of course, this is my turn to follow Commissioner Hughes and say, absolutely, we always need to be advocating for additional dollars from the city. And as commissioners who are out there in the community, this is also our chance to encourage our organizations to really start considering diversified revenue. How do we start looking at foundation dollars, philanthropic dollars? How do we start calling on our businesses in our community? Because these businesses will benefit in the future when events and vacations come back, right? So how do we also start to make sure that those connections and that awareness is really on us to start letting our organizations know how are some other ways that we can fund the awesome work that they're doing. And on the other side, how do we get the rest of the community to support us as well?
Good comment, Commissioner Smithy. I'm a big fan of building public will and evangelizing what we're doing. All righty, anybody else? Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, so we can go ahead and vote. And I'll remind you, I'll call your name, please unmute yourself and say yay, nay, or abstain. And we are voting on the percentage of the pie, not anything else than that. All right, Commissioner Frank?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Blevins? Commissioner Bossler?
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
A disappointed yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Ofsted?
Yay.
Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Smith? Is that a yay?
Yes.
Thank
Yay.
you. Commissioner Schonbrun? Commissioner Whooper?
Yay.
Thank you, and my vote is a yay. All right, thank you, everybody. Before we move on to presentations, I want to remind everybody to keep an eye out. You may have received a meeting invite to a special meeting of the commission that we're hoping to have on Friday, May 7th from 11 to 1. That meeting will be entirely focused on the equity assessment that was recently presented to the Policy and Funding Committee. Commissioner Bossler will tell us a little bit more about that in her report. I also want to make sure that you're aware of a coming change to meeting times for this body, as well as Policy and Funding and Advocacy committees. There are ongoing Friday morning staff meetings at City Hall that the Arts and Culture team need to attend. And so we need to try and accommodate our meetings around that schedule. And I believe that Bell has sent out some surveys. So again, keep an eye out for that, and please make sure that you answer with your preference on meeting times. We'll go with the majority vote on that, okay? Alrighty, Commissioner Hughes, did you have something to say? Okay, thank you. All right, well, I'm really excited about the presentations that we have today. Before I begin, is there any public comment on this item, Bell?
None have been submitted, but for those of you in attendance, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. Seeing none, Chair Boucher, but I did want to just note for the record that Commissioner Schoenbrunn has joined the meeting.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. All righty. Okay, well, as you know, as we all know, the month of April is National Poetry Month, and it's a time to celebrate poets and poetry and the power of spoken word in general. We've had some great examples of that this year. And you might remember last meeting, was it last meeting? We had, last meeting we had Ron Salisbury, who is our first poet laureate, come and be with us to kick off Poetry Month. And so since we're getting towards the end of April, I'm really excited to welcome and congratulate Kate Lange. Kate is the winner of San Diego's Poetry Out Loud competition. She did an awesome job. I happened to be asked to MC it, and I was really glad to see Kate and her colleagues are wonderful as well. And it's an initiative of the National Endowment of the Arts. Poetry Out Loud is the name of the program, and the Poetry Foundation. And it's administered by the California Arts Council in partnership with the Commission right here in San Diego. And it's intended to inspire high school students with the confidence to make themselves heard, knowing that one of the most powerful tools they have at their disposal, art and their voices. So Kate, who is a senior at Academy of Our Lady of Peace in San Diego, her love of theater and performance blossomed in early high school, and she's been dedicated to it ever since. She's a member of her school's speech team. She's semi-finaled and finaled numerous times with both original and interpretive pieces, as well as monologues. This is her second year advancing to Poetry Out Loud San Diego regional competition, and this year she placed in the top 10 in the California statewide competition. Good for you, Kate. And looking forward, she's planning on majoring in sociology and anthropology with a minor double major in theater and performing arts. She's going to be going to school at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. I'm so pleased you could join us today and that you agreed to recite for us and share your talent with us. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. This is What You Have to Get Over by Dick Allen. Stumps, railroad tracks, early sicknesses, the blue one especially. Your first love rounding a corner, that snowy minefield. Whether you step lightly or heavily, you have to get over to that tree line 100 yards in the distance before evening falls, letting no one see you wend your way. That wonderful old-fashioned word wend, meaning to proceed, to journey, to travel from one place to another, as from bed to breakfast, breakfast to imbecile work. You have to get over your resentments. The sun in the morning and the moon at night, all those shadows of yourself you left behind on odd little tables. Tote that barge, lift that bale. You have to cross that river, jump that hedge, surmount that slogan, crawl over this ego or that Eros, then hoist yourself onto that yonder mountain. Another old-fashioned word, yonder, meaning that indicated place, somewhere generally seen or just beyond sight. If you were to recover, you would have to get over the shattered autos in the backwoods lot, to that bridge in the darkness where the sentinels stand, guarding the border with their half-slung rifles, warned of the likes of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Oh, that's awesome. That was really great. Thank you. Tell us again the name of the poem and the poet.
It's called What You Have to Get Over by Dick Allen.
Thank you so much. Very, very nice. And much appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you so much. You don't have to hang out if you are going to school today, or perhaps even something more fun. Thanks again for joining us, and congratulations. Wonderful talent. We look forward to hearing a lot more from you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And everybody else is saying thank you as well.
Thank you, Kate. Yes.
Thank you.
And now, from somebody brand new to somebody we all know and revere, and that is Jean Isaacs. And we have the privilege of honoring Jean today. She's a critically acclaimed, award-winning choreographer across the US. Jean, I'm talking about you. She's the recently retired, and isn't retirement great, artistic director of the San Diego Dance Theater. She's the originator of the original site-specific project, Trolley Dances. Jean, do you need me to wait a minute?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great, okay. Co-founder of the San Diego Dance Alliance, Three's Company and Dancers, Isaac McCaleb and Dancers, pardon me. Jean's taught technique, choreography, improvisation at the University of California, San Diego, Department of Theater and Dance for 25 years. Jean's legacy and accomplishments have profoundly impacted the region and beyond. Jean's collaborated frequently with numerous cross-border partners, creating the Festival of Mexican Contemporary Dance at San Diego State, and earned awards from UC Mexis, the United States Mexico Fund for Culture and Arts International, and the UC Civic Collaborative for this work. And in partnership with San Diego's Metropolitan Transit System, who else but Jean would have thought of this? Through her leadership, San Diego Dance Theater created trolley dances to make dance accessible for all, one of the most popular events in San Diego. Concerning the prospects for earning a living in dance, Jean has often said, it's hard work. You really have to love it, but go for it. Not only has she gone for it, but she's also mentored many, many young artists over the decades. Jean, we could spend hours listing your accomplishments. A simple thank you is nowhere near enough for all you have done. It's our small way of letting you know how much we appreciate you and your contributions to the art of dance and beyond for all these years. And we want to honor you today and just thank you for the rippling effect of your legacy today and onwards. People will be talking about you forever in San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for
hear
making
me?
time today. Very, very nice to meet you in person.
Thank
Or
you, Janet.
in Zoom land. So thank you so much. Now, from the artistic to the immediacy of the state of the performing arts, we've asked Candace Paul to update us on the work of the statewide task force on reopening the arts safely. And I'm going to turn it over to Candace right now and ask her to share some more about that work with us.
Absolutely, thank you. Is there any chance we could not share screen so that I can see everybody? If that's okay, Carla. Thank you so much, Bella. I appreciate that. Hello, my name is D. Candace Paul. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm coming to you from the land originally inhabited by the Kumeyaay people. I am the immediate past president of the San Diego Performing Arts League, and I currently sit on the board. I've been there for 9 years. And the San Diego Performing Arts League supports all of the performing arts, the 150 performing arts organizations in San Diego. And we all know the world stopped spinning last March, and then we had an awful summer, and then the world started picking up a little bit, and around September, the 40 of us from around the state got together as initiated by the Californians for the Arts, Julie Baker, and we said, gosh, things are starting to open up. What about the arts? When are the arts going to have a guideline? Because that's what was happening, is everyone was saying, well, can we? And the city was saying, well, we need guidelines from the state. And the state said, well, we need guidelines from the city. So the Californians for the Arts got together and said, we have to push this. We have to be the ones that say we need guidelines. And it was a variety of organizations. It was mainly consortium representatives. So the San Francisco International Arts Festival, Actors Equity, Another Planet, which produces thousands of music concerts. So it wasn't just nonprofits, it was for-profits, but still is the arts, right? And in San Diego, there was 9 of us. from Jacob Center, Balboa Park Cultural Project, Performing Arts League, San Diego Theaters, Globe Symphony Music Society, La Jolla Music Society, and California Ballet. And we all sat in on these meetings and we all listened, and Julie made all these fabulous suggestions. And I noticed that the San Diego people weren't really responding. I think we were very deer in the headlights, as the arts has been for a while now. And so in October, I said, why don't we chat, the 9 of us? And we've been doing that every 2 weeks since, and it's become this fabulous opportunity for the San Diego arts organizations to connect and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's worked out very well. And every week somebody else wants to join. This week's was Lambs Players joined and Malashok Dance joined. And it's been a tremendous sharing of communication. We had the Choral Consortium join, who represents 70 choirs. So just fantastic way of communicating. Okay, so none of this is news, right? We all know what that is. So how do we then move forward? Well, the guidelines just came out April 15th, right? Almost a week ago. And that's because it took 6 months for this consortium to really push and say, what can we get? What can we need? This is what, let's explain to you that we're not, when we say a music concert, we don't mean Coachella. Let's explain to you what we mean when we say a performance. We don't mean a 2,000 seat theater. We mean a 49 seat black box. How does this all function? Well, GoBiz and the CDPH would really like to get out of the business of creating guidelines, right? So they're there and they spent a lot of time and they put a tremendous amount of effort, but they understand that for most performing arts organizations, opening at minimum capacity means not opening at all, right? So the 25%, the 33%, wow, 50%, still not viable. Most theaters, they need to have 60 to 75% of capacity of house paying to break even. So opening at 33% is not opening. And we all understand that June 15th, this wonderful June 15th that's going to happen, hopefully, it's an incentive. It's not a promise. Even though California has the lowest case rate in the continental United States, the way that theaters and the performing arts, excuse me, organizations have had to work is every 2 weeks since March of 2020, they've had to sit down and say, okay, what do the next 3 months look like? And then 2 weeks later, they go, okay, what do their next 3 months look like? Because the information either got worse or got a little better, but still wasn't enough for the arts to move forward. The guidelines for outdoor have been out for a little bit now, still nothing larger than 5,000, which doesn't really affect us because the guidelines, of course, included sports, right? They included sports and the arts because they're the same thing, right? One of the acronyms that they're using a lot now is MTV. So for some of you in this group, I am not talking about Martha Quinn or Nina Blackwood. It is masking, testing, vaccination. Those are the three. The MTV is what it's all about now in terms of the arts. Masking is not going away. In any conversation talked about, masking is always implied. It's the testing and the vaccination that are what the arts are dealing with right now. A big conversation is this whole thing of requesting proof of vaccination. There's a huge concern about discrimination lawsuits and someone saying, well, I wanted to go to the theater, but they wouldn't let me in. And the new guidelines came out, there was a dimmer. It was a dimmer, like the dimming down of the guidelines that said, okay, you can have a vaccinated section and you can have a non-vaccinated section as long as they show proof that they've been tested, or like the Padres, you can have testing right here on the spot for $20. And then that way you can get inside. And if you don't want to do any of those, then you don't have to come. Okay, and that's not something that theaters have ever done, not something anyone's ever done before, but it's something that they have to look into, right? It's one more thing to look into and see, can we do that? And that's, the capacities aren't there yet anyway. Now there was, and also, forgive me, I have a lot of information in my head. There's vaccinated and non-vaccinated sections. but they have to be 12 feet apart. So if you've ever been to Onstage Playhouse in Chula Vista, if you've ever been to North Coast Rep, which is, you know, fabulous organizations, 12 feet apart, on stage, there is no 12 feet apart. They just simply can't function with those rules and regs. So then what do? You can have a vaccine, if you're vaccinated section, you do not have to have social distancing. So then do you say, well, in order for us to do 66% of house, we're just going to do vaccinated people only? Well, that can be a problem, right? Someone who's saying, well, I want to go to your theater. Now, there is a bill introduced by Assembly Member James Ramos from District 40. And it's actually the introduction hearing is May 4th. So that's happening next week. And that's for nonprofit organizations to create immunity from civil liability due to COVID-19. So that'll be an interesting thing to follow for all of the theaters to see where that goes. There are talks of a health pass system, much like when you get your boarding pass to go on a plane, you can either have it on your phone or a physical piece of paper. Well, there's a health pass system to show that you've been vaccinated. The physical cards that many of us have, you can get that online. So the legitimacy of a card is not something anybody at a theater is going to question, right? So then there's like, well, do you do an attestation that when you're signing up for your tickets, you check that box that says, yes, I am fully vaccinated? Is that enough? Is that enough for the theaters to go by? And so they're looking at the larger organizations like the Padres in town or other for-profits that have just as much to lose, if not more, to see what's working for them on their scale, and then how can they apply that to theater. And that's part of what we talk about every 2 weeks. In Los Angeles, they're looking to include vaccination information in the Apple Wallet. There's Excelsior Pass, which is in New York, which is that shows that you've been vaccinated. There's Clear Pass, which the theaters have said are extremely expensive. So there's not a clear winner yet. And there's also not really a clear path forward for the arts yet. The way the arts has been functioning is by all this wonderful streaming. And so they've gone with the SAG union contract and found a way of doing that and making that work. Well, that expires April 30th. So they're hoping that can be renewed for another 90 days, because there's many organizations that are saying, well, we hope to open in October, right? And they still want to have the opportunity to stream. And on top of everything, when you look at what's going on with COVID and with guidelines, when retail came back, they opened their doors. When schools came back, they had to deal with their unions. Same thing with the arts. Just because the government says, yes, you can open your doors again, well, you've got the Screen Actors Guild, you've got Actors Equity, they have their rules. You've got the Musicians Union, they have their rules. You have IATSE, they have their rules. So there's a lot of different organizations that are saying, yeah, I'm glad your theater's open 66%, but let me tell you what the musicians can and cannot do. And then another union saying, well, let me tell you what the actors can and cannot do. And then a third organization saying, well, let me tell you what your crew can and cannot do. Right? So the theaters are dealing with so many voices and so many guidelines. It's really, it's a struggle. And everyone's excited to finally open and do something. There's little glimmers of movements forward, but you know, the TOT loss is monumental, and there's no doubt how that's affecting everything. What the Californians for the Arts has started is a grassroots effort to advocate for a stimulus funds budget request. And the reports show that it'll be 2025 before the whole arts sector will fully recover. And in those 4 years, the arts is going to need some help. So the Californians for the Arts and everybody on the group is pushing forward to stimulate economic activity with a $1 billion request in stimulus funds from the federal government, which would be extremely helpful, of course, for California to split that up over those 4 years through grants, through the Small Business Administration, California Arts Council, California Cultural and Historical Endowment. We'll see, right? That would be what needs to happen to move forward. Now there's the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant, right? Fabulous idea, came up in December, $16 billion. We're gonna do it in April, everybody apply. The site didn't work, nobody applied. They said last week, oh, we'll open this week. They said today, it'll open tomorrow, that they've really worked on it. So tomorrow, anyone who has a shuttered venue, which is everyone in the arts, is gonna be on there trying to get that part of their pie from that $16 billion. So that's kind of the state of the arts, right? It's still, I know it's like, yay, happy Friday, Candace. Let's talk about all the opening arts. This is fun. I mean, there is some positive, the fact that we're all here, right? I think that one of the biggest realizations that we have to make as an arts community, as people who are passionate about the arts, many of us on this call are volunteering for the arts because it's something we believe in, is COVID unfortunately has shown a light on a distressing reality, and that's that the arts are not considered essential. Arts programs have disappeared in schools. Funding in many areas have disappeared. When an art space is okay for an election purposes, but not for the arts, right? Or an art space is okay for a vaccination setup, but not for the arts. It reiterates again and again that society at large and the government doesn't see the arts as essential. Right now, today, a church can have a leader on stage, pulpit, bema, inside at 50% capacity, but a theater company who performs in a church, who rents a church to do their performance, cannot have a performance on that same stage with the 50% capacity because the arts are not essential. And I think that's a big picture reality that moving forward, I'm hoping that all of us can chip away at and make progress, because I don't know how much we really realized it before COVID happened and how much the arts hasn't been celebrated and pushed forward. I will say that it's because of, I'm very proud to be a member of the Performing Arts League. We have been there for the arts organizations. We have been a stronghold. We have workshops and roundtables to connect the community. And I'm very proud to be part of the Performing Arts League. And I'm so honored to speak in front of all of you, because we're all sisters under the mink. And I just am appreciative for all your time and efforts to be part of something that is so meaningful. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Candace. You know, I suppose you could, well, it's not me. I can't sit here and go, oh, what a bummer, all these things. I mean, all the things you said that are true. And, you know, knowing that when we're talking about theater, we're not just talking about the 10 people on stage and the director who are out of work. And it's also the family that is part of any performance like that. So, but I feel really positive because we have folks like you on the front line, and we do have, look at all these people who, as you say, many of us are volunteers. So I feel positive about the future. And, you know, if it made creative people get creative, okay, not so bad. Alrighty, thank you so much for being with us today. Stop by anytime and give us an update if you would.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, oh, somebody's going, Tyler, of course it would be Tyler, is going to start the Church of Shakespeare. Very good idea. Okay, folks, next up, We are moving to committee reports, and Belle, I'm going to ask if we have any public comment.
Yes, we do. So I was going to see if Christine could read the submissions, and then we will check in with the attendees.
Thank you.
So yes, we do have a number of written comments, so I will read those. So these written comments are for agenda item number 5. The first comment comes from Emily Ost. Reformat contracts to view city funding as community investment and provide 80% of contract award upfront. The current 1-to-1 matching requirement is a big barrier for smaller arts and cultural organizations. Having to front the money for their projects and then be reimbursed is difficult to do. Other cities with thriving art scenes, i.e. Los Angeles and San Francisco, do not create large barrier. Please implement the recommendation from RISE Research and Evaluation to reformat contracts to view city funding as community investment and provide 80% of contract award upfront. Re-envision funding criteria so that priority is given to organizations and events that are led by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC, and or serve communities of color. As seen in the RISE Research and Evaluation Report, the top 10 funded organizations who received the most funding from the Commission from fiscal year 17 to 2021 were consistently predominantly white organizations that serve predominantly white communities. This clearly demonstrates that the funding process heavily favors and funds larger, predominantly white organizations. The next public comment comes from Arthur Huan. Please reformat contracts so that is no longer a 1-to-1 matching requirement. It's very hard for small arts and cultural organizations to be able to front the money and then wait for reimbursement. Also, please consider the recommendation from RISE Research and Evaluation to provide 80% of contract awards up front, as these contracts should be viewed as community investments. Also, it should be priority to have funding criteria consider whether the organization is led by BIPOC or serves communities of color. The current research from RISE Research shows that the top 10 organizations to receive the most funding are consistently predominantly white or serves predominantly white communities. This shows that the current criteria is flawed as it perpetuates the status quo and doesn't allow minority-led organizations to have a chance to compete. Please implement the recommendation from the RISE report in order to better help BIPOC communities. Thank you. The next comment comes from Trixie Agiao. I'm Trixie Agiao from Movement Catalyst SD. I'm a BIPOC artist living in District 6. Here's my recommendation. Create a new, unencumbered, equity-focused funding program designed to nurture new and emerging organization events, particularly those that are BIPOC-led and serving communities of color. The current funding process creates unnecessary barriers that hinder new and emerging organizations from being able to apply for funding. For example, having to have 3 years of operating data to submit while applying does not allow for new organizations to access the commission funding. By funding new and emerging arts and cultural organizations, San Diego Arts and Culture will expand into all communities. By implementing this change, the commission has a chance to change arts and culture scene throughout San Diego, making arts more accessible to all communities, not just La Jolla, downtown, and Liberty Station. Please implement the recommendation from the RISE Research and Evaluation Report and create a new unencumbered equity-focused funding program designed to nurture new and emerging organizations and events, particularly those that are BIPOC-led and serve communities of color. The next comment comes from Thelma Verada de Castro. Recommendation number 1, reformat contracts to view city funding as community investment and provide 80% of contract award upfront. The current 1-to-1 matching requirement is a big barrier for smaller arts and cultural organizations. Having to front the money for their projects and then be reimbursed is difficult to do. Other cities with thriving art scenes, i.e. Los Angeles, San Francisco, do not create this large barrier. Please implement the recommendation from RISE Research and Evaluation to reformat contracts to view city funding as community investment and provide 80% of contract award upfront. The next comment comes from Elisa Junius. Even though it is too late to implement the special recommendation for FY22, please implement it for FY23. As recommended by RISE Research and Evaluation on recommendation 6, permanently implement caps and redistribute awards to smaller organizations. particularly those led by and or serving BIPOC. The next comment comes from Nicole Oga. I am with Movements Catalyst San Diego, and I urge the commission to implement all recommendations made in the RISE Research and Evaluation Report. On page 6 of the RISE Research and Evaluation Report, they have a special recommendation for fiscal year 2022. In summarization, they recommend for FY22 that any organization that has an annual operating income of 5 million or more would be ineligible to apply for OSP. In the two scenarios that are laid out in the report, this one could change potentially yield 1 to 2 million to be distributed to other smaller organizations. The organizations with AOI of 5 million or more rely on no more than 2.5% of their total revenue from the commission. The redistribution of those dollars away from large institutions will not cause insolvency or closure for them. For smaller arts organizations receiving funding from the commission could be the determining factor on whether they are able to remain in business. Redistributing the millions of dollars from this one change could help them not only survive during these difficult times, but thrive in the future. Please take recommendation 6 and permanently implement caps and redistribute awards to smaller organizations, particularly those led by and serving BIPOC. And that concludes the written comments.
Okay, perfect. And for those members of the public in attendance, please click the button to raise your hand to indicate that you would like to comment. I will enable you to speak, send you a prompt. When I call your name, please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to provide comment, after which you will be placed on mute again. If you're joining via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. I will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. When I call on you, press *6 to unmute yourself. So Sean, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sean Warner. I'm the Director of Community Enhancement for the Downtown San Diego Partnership. Speaking on the intersection mural at Cortez, in the Cortez neighborhood of downtown. Just good morning, Chair and Commission members. We're very excited about this project to bring this unique piece of work of art to downtown San Diego. We've been working with the Downtown Partnership, has been working with the Cortez Hill Active Residence Group and artists Phoebe and Roxy over the past year on the design and making sure the community had support and buy-in. And I also want to express our thanks to the commission staff for developing the mural toolkit, which was very invaluable, kind of set a step-by-step process for how we could get this project done. So I know the partnership is very involved in as my role working within the public realm of downtown and bringing, creating spaces to bring more arts and culture. And so this is just one example of how we can, creatively reuse and look at public spaces, in this case, an intersection, and turn what was a piece of asphalt into a beautiful work of art. We've been working with the Cortez neighborhood on actually improving this corridor. It's a primary vehicular gateway into downtown. It's also heavily traveled by pedestrians in the Cortez neighborhood. We've recently installed pole-to-pole lighting, corner planters, banners, and so I think this is going to be a great addition to the neighborhood. So I just want to express our excitement and thank you for considering this project.
Thank you, Sean. And anyone else like to comment? And seeing none, Chair Boutre.
Thank you, Belle. Thank you very much, everyone, for your comments. Okay, now we're going to do conflict of interest disclosures, and the recommendation that is going to be before us affects the OSP and CCSD recipients. Please assess whether you have any conflicts to disclose. And when I call your name, if you have no conflicts, please state out loud, no conflicts. If you do have a conflict, please recuse yourself from the discussion and voting on the action item. I'll call your name and please unmute yourself and say whether you have conflicts. If you do not, say no conflicts. Commissioner Frank?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Blevins? Commissioner Bossler?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
I'm a full-time employee of a contractor, so I will recuse myself at this moment from the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner DeCenzo?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
And we had discussed this at Policy and Funding, and I talked with the Ethics Commission because my firm is paid by one of the contractors, but it is a pass-through where they are acting as a fiscal agent for other entities. I'm just disclosing that, but I'm not recusing.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Meza?
No conflicts.
Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Opstead?
Conflict. My wife serves as an unpaid board member for the new Children's Museum, but it is my understanding that I have to not participate in the entire conversation or just that one approving that single organization.
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, do I have to recuse myself from the entire conversation or just from voting for that particular organization?
Good question. Where's John Dwyer?
Actually, John's not with us today, but I can answer that.
Thanks, John.
You have the option of recusing yourself from only that one, but per city guidelines, you are still, because you don't receive financial benefit by your wife's participation on that board, you may still vote on the museum. It is up to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. Tricky business, that. Okay, Commissioner Smith?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonberg? Okay. Commissioner Whooper?
No conflicts.
Thank you. All right. Now I'd like to call on Commissioner Bossler to share her committee report, provide an overview on the proposal and the staff recommendations. Commissioner Bossler?
Good morning, thank you. So I'm Ann Bossler and I'm the chair of the Policy and Funding Committee. The Policy and Funding Committee had its most recent meeting this past Friday, April 16th. During that meeting, we had an informal presentation on the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEI assessment of the policies and procedures of the arts programs through the commission and the next steps in that work. At that meeting, the committee recommended to endorse the DEI evaluation findings and the next steps. Chair Petray, I believe it's the intent to have a special commission meeting to discuss that report in May. If memory serves, it's May 7th. Also on April 9th at the regular Policy and Funding Committee meeting, we had Executive Director Jonathan Gluss, who provided an overview of the committee's work calendar in the coming months. And we also reviewed the panel recommendations for the 18 applicants for the city's one-time special arts and culture nonprofit grant initiative. Those 18 organizations are being awarded $15,000 each. As you may recall, the initiative provides targeted general operating support to bring back or to retain staff and to cover reopening expenses such as supplies and training related to COVID-19. Lastly, we voted on the fiscal year 22 organization support program and the Creative Community San Diego request for proposal ranks, which were submitted by the Commission Advisory Panel. The committee did not recommend any changes to those ranks. The San Diego African American Museum of Fine Art had submitted an appeal to their 2+ ranking that was not included in the recommendation. This action item now is being presented to you for recommendation, and I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Jonathan Gluss, who will walk us through the committee report.
Thank you, Commissioner Bosler. Before we move into the action item itself, which I'll invite Carla Centeno to present in detail, I did want to acknowledge your comments about the DEI. We are working, in fact, on confirming a special meeting of this full body from 12 to 2 on May 7th. Bell is testing that time with all of you right now. And then we, from there, are working on a facilitated workshop for all of you, this entire body, in June to develop a 12 to 18 month action plan, an equity action plan. And part of that will include developing an equity statement, as well as convening an ad hoc advisory committee of community representatives. And all of this work is informed by the important information that we received from the analysis submitted by Rise Research and Analytics. So we're looking forward to working with all of you in detail beginning on the 7th. Regarding the action item, excuse me, I'd like to turn it over to Carla to give us just a brief reminder of what the process has looked like this year, and then go right into proposed ranks. Carla?
Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you today. As Jonathan mentioned, I'm going to go over the application process. So basically walk us how we got to where we are now. So just a reminder, back on October 12th, we opened the RFQ, which is part 1 of our application process that closed on November 13th. We had a total of 187 organizations that submitted the application. And then after that, if you remember, we do have a renew process where organizations are welcome to submit an option to renew. And if granted, they can essentially renew their contract. So out of those 187, we had 98 organizations that requested an option to renew. And then 79 organizations that moved over to the RFP, which is part 2 of the process, that opened on January 15th and closed on February 12th. The organizations that moved on to the RFP moved on to the RFP because either A, there were new applicants and needed to submit part 2, or they just decided to submit one on their own account, or their option to renew had expired, so they had to go to RFP. So those are the reasons why we had the 79 going to RFP this year. Just to kind of give you a snapshot of the organizations, the council district locations, we had 119 OSP organizations. This is a breakdown of where those organizations are located. So this is where their hubs are located within the city. And then for CCSD, we had 58 organizations for fiscal year 22. And this is not where the organization is located. It is where their projects are located. So as you know, CCSD is project-based. So the CCSD breakdown shows you project locations. I know there's a lot of information, so I'll give you just a couple seconds to digest this. Okay, I'm going to move on, but I'm more than happy to come back to this slide if you want to talk about it or want to take another look. So going over the panel selection, if you remember, we did a call back in December where we kind of cast a wide net and released a call to recruit new panelists for this year. And this new list that was added was in addition to last year's list. So we were able to pull from both FY21 lists and FY22 lists to put together the panels for this year. Staff considered panelist availability, panel size, conflict of interest, and then a balanced representation of council districts, skill sets, areas of expertise, prior history as serving as a panelist. And then once we were able to kind of put all the puzzle pieces together and we invited panelists to join and we got confirmations that they could, we hosted 2-hour trainings so that each panelist got training on the scoring criteria, what to expect, what to do, best practices, and then overall just the panel process. We also sent them a 14-minute video that covered kind of DEI perspective on being a panelist, and that was created by MGR Associates, which, if you may remember, they are the DEI experts that provided staff training last year. So they put together this really wonderful video that every single panelist saw. And then after they watched that video and they received a 2-hour training, the panelists were given access to the GoSmart platform, which is a platform we use to receive all of applications. And they were able to read every single application independently on their own, review them, give preliminary scores. And they brought all of that information with them the day of the panel as they discussed the different applications. The panelists were given about 2 weeks to review all of the applications thoroughly, take down notes, and then come prepared for panel deliberations. If you remember, in the past, we did not provide panelists honorariums. However, this year we did. So we provided a $150 honorarium for a full day, and then we provided a $75 for a half day. And I'll get into that panel breakdown in a little bit, panel size breakdown. So a little bit of information about the panelists. So who were they? We had 12 City of San Diego panelists included. 5 council districts were represented. 9 were in California, 5 were out of state, and then 1 was binational. So one of them was actually from Tijuana. The age groups represented, we do not ask specific ages. However, we ask that panelists select different age ranges that they fall in. So we had some panelists select the 18 to 25 age range, and then we also had panelists also submit the 55 to 70. So that kind of gives you an idea of the different age ranges represented. We had 15 panelists that self-identified as female, 12 that self-identified as male. And then the race breakdown is as followed. We had, and by the way, this is all kind of this is how the panelists self-identified. So we collected all of this information in our initial call. So that's what we're showing you. We had 3 Hispanic, Latinx, Chicano. We had 4 African-American, Black, Hispanic, Latinx, Chicano mixed heritage, 1 mixed heritage, 3 Asian American mixed heritage, 14 Anglo white Caucasian, and 2 who decided to not answer the question. So the panels were held between March 8th and March 19th. So that's 2 weeks. Last year we held it all within 1 week. So we kind of expanded it this year and we grouped it by CCSD on 1 week and then OSP on the 2nd week. We had a total of 8 panel convenings, which amounted in 35 hours of deliberation. And the panels were broken down by discipline/project type. So for CCSD, we had 3 full-day panels. The first panel consisted of parades, cultural events, and music festivals. The second panel consisted of street fairs, art festivals, art markets, interdisciplinary projects. Panel 3 consisted of exhibitions, art productions, arts education, and interdisciplinary projects. And then for OSP, so week 2, we had 1 full-day panel, which was visual art, cultural heritage, and interdisciplinary organizations. And then the following 4 panels were all half-day panels. So we had theater, dance, music, and then arts education and creative youth development. So this gives you an idea of how we organized it. And then this was also part of our panel selection, is figuring out what experts we have, and then how we can kind of pair them to specific panels. So that is it. So what we are asking is for you to recommend to the mayor and city council the request for proposal ranks for fiscal year 2022 organizational support program and creative community San Diego funding categories as submitted by the panels. Just so you know, for next steps after this, we will be using this year's ranks plus whatever carryover ranks we had for the option to renew. The organizations that selected the option to renew will be using all of that to then also factor in for OSP, their AOI size, and then for their AOI, for CCSD, their project budget. We'll also be using the allocation that was the program allocation that was given out by city council, as you saw today. We'll be using that number, and then also the number of applicants. So all of those things will be put into account in the algorithm as we finalize the awards, and then the awards will be announced no later than June 30th, the final awards. So I know I went through this very quickly. Does anyone have any questions for me? I'm happy to go back to any slides.
I don't see anybody looking for a question. And Carla, because you've gone over this with us so clearly on a number of times, I'm sure that's why we all understand it really well. So thank you for that.
Sure, you got it.
Alrighty. Well, would somebody like to make a motion to approve? Type speak in the chat box. I will call on you. Commissioner Bossler?
I make the motion that we approve we recommend to the mayor and to the city council the request for proposal ranks for fiscal year 22 for both OSP and CCSD.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
And I second that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Meza?
I was just going to second that.
Thank you. It's good and seconded now. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Does anybody have any other comments to make or questions to ask before we vote? Okay. Seeing none, then we will go ahead and vote. I will call your name and please respond out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Frank?
I think Commissioner DeZenzo might have had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, first off, thank you so much for putting in the districts. That was really, really enlightening and helpful. I wanted to just kind of mention a couple of things about it, that it's clear that District 3 is going to get a large portion of the OSP funding, because Balboa Park is a cultural center for the city, and it does attract a large amount of tourism. And, you know, they are the ones that are going to apply for this money more than some of the smaller groups. But what I'd like to say is that it's obvious that we need more outreach in the areas that didn't get a lot of the funding, the smaller percentages. I'm not sure if that is something that we can help with, because obviously if there are no organizations to request money, then there is no money going to those areas. So I'm not sure how we can encourage organizations to either, you know, apply for the funding or to start a program or an organization. I'm not sure, you know, at what level the commission would be involved in that kind of stuff. For CCSD, I was really, really happy with the results, the percentage results on that. It is just distributed a lot more evenly, and I really, really appreciate being able to see that. The CCSD to me is where the commission reaches out to the community. You know, the OSP is definitely the organizations that attract the tourists, that bring in the TOT money and that kind of stuff. But the CCSD is for the people. And I really, really love seeing the percentages being more equal for CCSD. And I think that we're doing a good job of reaching out to the communities and, you know, getting them some funding for the people that they represent. There's obviously some work that could still be done. Maybe encourage more community engagement, more community activities, more diversity in those community activities. You know, but I think that the CCSD is doing really well. And again, I 100% appreciate being able to see those percentages of the awards this year. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, Commissioner DeCenzo, I hear what you're saying. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and observations. One thing that came to mind when you were speaking is we've been talking to council members, you know, you've been on those conversations and talking about fiscal agents in every part of the city, sometimes even multiple in the same district, that can help the smaller organizations and even individual artist projects get going by working with a trusted community-based fiscal agent. So that is one way that I know that we're trying to penetrate further into the grassroots, if you will. And you know, it's always one of those things when you remember, oh yeah, it's the city. It moves kind of like that boat in Egypt, okay? So, but it's good because we have people who want to drive it in the right direction. So that's a positive.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, Tracy, Deanna will be kind of providing more analysis and more information on, I'm sorry, she'll be providing information on what we intend to do for FY23 with policy and funding next month. But just so you know, last year we did host a series of meetings with council, with the council offices, and doing that brought in new applicants. And so we're looking at doing that again, expanding that. And I just spoke to one applicant who told me, you know, had I not attended that council district workshop, I wouldn't have known about this opportunity. So there's a direct link there. And I think that is something that we are going to work on increasing and just, you know, casting as many nets, showing that we're out there and supporting throughout the process. So thanks for saying that.
I see Jonathan wanted to add something.
I also want to thank Commissioner DeCenzo for those comments. We are completely in step with you in our commitment to expanding the pool. At the Policy and Funding Committee, as Carla said, there's a whole portfolio of things that we're bringing into you to dig into for next year that we believe will. We piloted some of those, like a few fiscal agents this year. We've learned some of the obstacles around that. We want to really refine that. So that's what we want to dig in with you in just a few weeks. I do want to say, however, it is true that in the central city, that's where the majority of the OSP funding is directed. But that isn't specifically because those are tourism sites. It's because the size of the budgets of the organizations that are in the central city. And because we use an AOI, that determines the allocation that the organizations receive. So more on that in a couple weeks, but thank you for your comments, and we are in lockstep with you and many of the comments that have been made from the public.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, so unless anybody else has a comment to make, we can go ahead and vote on this action item. As you recall, we're recommending the rankings to the City Council. So I'll call your name and please unmute yourself and out loud, yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Frank?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Blevins? Commissioner Bossler?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown is recused. Commissioner DeCenzo?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay, with the understanding that I'm recusing myself on the vote for the Jacobs Center for Neighborhood Innovation.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Opstead?
Yay, but
Thank you.
just like Tyler, I'm going to recuse myself from voting or approving the new Children's Museum.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun? Commissioner Whooper?
Yay.
Thank you. And my vote is a yay. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're now going to move on to Public Art Committee. And before we do, we'll do some conflict of interest disclosures again. And this recommendation affects contracts with the Downtown San Diego Partnership and artists Phoebe Cornog and Roxy Prima. So please assess whether you have any conflicts to disclose. And when I call your name, if you have no conflicts, please state no conflicts. If you do have a conflict, please recuse yourself from the discussion and voting on this coming up action item. Commissioner Frank?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Blevins? Commissioner Bossler?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown? Pardon me. Commissioner DeCenzo?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
No conflict.
Thank you. Excuse me. Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Meza?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Opstead?
No conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
No conflicts.
Thanks. Commissioner Schonbrun? And Commissioner Whooper?
No conflicts.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call on Commissioner Ben Meza to share his committee report and provide an overview of the proposal and staff recommendation.
Excuse me, Janet.
Yes, I'm going to ping him right now.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Wanted to say that yesterday we had a wonderful artist selection for the Buyer Park. We reviewed over 40 applications and saw work samples from each of the artists and shortlisted a group. It was a wonderful experience. I want to thank Laura, Chuck, and Christine for making it go smoothly and creating a great experience for the other panelists. At our April 1st meeting, we approved the mural proposal that you're going to see to move forward to the commission. And so that is our action item today. The Public Art Committee recommends that the Executive Director of the City of San Diego Commission of Arts and Culture approve the intersection mural titled We Are Cortez, consisting of a mural by artists Phoebe Cornog and Roxy Prima for temporary exhibition within the traffic intersection of 3rd Avenue and Cedar Street in Cortez Hill, downtown, for up to a 5-year period. At this time, I'd like to call on Chuck to give us an overview of the proposal. Chuck?
Thank you, Commissioner Meza, and good morning, commissioners. So to give you some background on this proposal, commission staff has received an application for an intersection mural from the Downtown San Diego Partnership. The applicant is proposing an intersection mural by San Diego-based artists Phoebe Cornog and Roxy Prima. The mural is proposed for installation within the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Cedar Street in Cortez Hill, downtown, and would be 32 feet by 32 feet square. Commission staff evaluated the application utilizing criteria contained within the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture Department Instruction, Collection Management Policy for the Civic Art Collection. Next slide, please. So the primary points of the commission staff's analysis includes regarding artwork criteria, starting with public safety. If the mural is painted and installed properly within the proposed location of the traffic intersection, it is unlikely to pose hazards or threats to public safety or public health, and or unlikely to pose a potential liability for the city in any other way. Regarding cost and fiscal considerations, the applicant will be solely responsible for funding the intersection mural in total. Regarding the availability of resources, city staff is available to provide administrative services to the applicant to process the application and execute a temporary artwork maintenance and removal agreement. Next slide, please. Regarding relevance, the mural would provide an aesthetic and cultural experience for residents and visitors to Cortez Hill and activate and enhance the surrounding the area surrounding the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Cedar Street. Due to the placement of the mural at a busy intersection that is active with vehicles and pedestrians, the mural will serve to balance urbanization and development with humanizing elements. The mural may stimulate discussion and exchange of ideas about art in the neighborhood due to the highly visible location. Next slide, please. Regarding excellence, the proposed mural exemplifies an acceptable level of artistic merit and quality of workmanship. I will, however, remind commissioners that because this mural is proposed for the public right-of-way, we will not be evaluating the proposed design on its conceptual content. Our task will be to provide a recommendation based solely on its alignment with city's other criteria. So regarding maintenance, the applicant will be solely responsible for the maintenance of the mural for the duration of the exhibition period. Next slide, please. Regarding the relationship to the site, the mural is to be sited on the pavement within the intersection of 3rd Avenue and Cedar Street. The mural would serve to activate this busy intersection. Regarding community feedback, the applicant collected a letter of support for the project from the Cortez Hill Active Residents Group. A mural was a recommendation from a 2019 pedestrian study conducted by the Cortez Hill Active Residents Group. With respect to site selection criteria, to reiterate, the proposed site of the mural is within the city's public right-of-way. The applicant provided signed consent forms from all adjacent property owners. Next slide, please. So regarding legal and ethical considerations, if the mural is authorized, it will be formalized in a temporary artwork maintenance and removal agreement between the applicant and the city. The artists have provided a royalty-free license to reproduce images of the artwork for non-commercial purposes and waivers of rights conferred under the Visual Artists' Rights Act and California Art Preservation Act. And next slide, please. So at the April 2nd Public Art Committee meeting, the Public Art Committee voted 7 yay, 0 nay, and 0 abstaining to recommend to the City of San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture that the executive director of the commission approve the intersection mural titled "We Are Cortez," consisting of a mural by artists Phoebe Cornog and Roxy Prima for temporary exhibition within the traffic intersection of 3rd Avenue and Cedar Street in Cortez Hill, downtown, for up to a 5-year period. That is it. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chuck. Nice presentation. Does anybody have any questions for Chuck? Okay, I don't see Tracy. Okay, type speak, Tracy, please. That way we keep track of it.
It's in there.
I see it. Okay, thanks. Tracy, go ahead.
So the question I have is, how are they, so this is a limited art project of 5 years. And my question is how are they going to dismantle it? And what, I mean, are there safety precautions for environmental issues of, you know, the paint going into the sewers or whatever? I mean, how are they going to remove it if they plan on removing it? Does anybody know?
I'm not I'm not precisely sure of the technique. I do know that the applicant has proposed that a professional striping contractor will be installing the mural. So I would the permitting will stipulate, however, if I'm understanding correctly, the proper methods that should be adhered to in the installation and removal of the mural.
Chuck,
I can't.
This is Ben. Excuse me. The city has very strict requirements for demolition of things, including removal of something like this. And I am pretty sure that a hazmat report would have to be done, and it would have to be approved before they are given permission to remove it. As an architect, I deal with this every day, and they're not just gonna have them go out there and power wash it off. They have to prove that it's not gonna endanger the fishies in the bay. So, all right.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Fish fans, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a good question, Tracy. Okay, anybody else want to type speak in the box? How about you want to type speak in the box and make a motion? That would be Commissioner Hughes.
Just one quick comment and I'll make my motion. I think this is, if we could use this as leverage to inspire other local groups to take on murals in other right-of-ways, that would be really exciting, because this kind of public art that can be indicative of each neighborhood would be just a really wonderful thing to include in a cultural plan. Anyway, I motion.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second, Commissioner Bossler?
A second the motion.
Thank you. And Commissioner Brown, I'm sorry, I think I might have missed you. Commissioner Brown, did you want to speak?
Oh, I was just going to second.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This chat box is tricky. All righty. Everybody ready to vote? I will call your name. Please unmute yourself and respond with out loud with yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Frank.
I'm having trouble here, kids. I don't want to say yay, so I'm going to abstain. I don't see this as anything more than decoration. I don't know why the commission's even considering it.
All righty. Commissioner Blevins, Commissioner Bossler.
Well, did we want to discuss for a minute?
Well, we had the opportunity to discuss, and Vernon.
That's right. See, Ann, if I tried to discuss, that's what happens every time. And they would tell me, why didn't I come to the public art meeting? Okay. And this is my moment, and that's how I feel, and I'm done.
Okay, well, if you want to discuss it some more, I'm in no big rush to vote. I want to give everybody the chance to speak. So Vernon, if you would like to explain how you're feeling, please do.
Okay, sure. So my apologies, everybody. I know this is supposed to be a brief process, and if I were this interested, I should be at the Public Art Committee meeting. It's just that when I look at this, it's a fine mural, but it's decorative. It's a decorative thing, and it leans in a particular direction, and the direction is marketing and branding. Okay, and so it feels and is in fact a marketing branding kind of a thing. Which is fine, which has its place. There's no problem. But to be a commission sanctioned artwork for a pretty key intersection, that intersection is a gateway of sorts, and it gets heavily trafficked by students going to the law school. And it's kind of a node into downtown. And so, if we're going to take the trouble as a commission for arts and culture to oversee art in the city, I think that we could have done a better job of shepherding a concept there that is more meaningful to the neighborhood and to the city and to the time, and not something that is based on an entirely different set of principles, which I see as branding, marketing, kind of Instagram, internet populist. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael Brown.
I just wanted to jump in. Yeah, this is a really prominent intersection, and you know, the comment that I put in the chat box was just that now is the time for discussion. I welcome Vernon's contributions from you know, both of us having served on the Public Art Committee, and I think discussion is valuable at this moment.
Okay, Commissioner Bossler. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner DeCenzo.
Vernon, thank you very much for speaking up. I, you know, while it is really valuable to have these, you know, intersection murals and, you know, public art and, you know, I think what it does is it stimulates or gives the idea that other communities can do this too. So that's the value that I see in this. But I do agree with you that the location, especially being near the law school and, you know, the area and, you know, so many people and so much, you know, it seems like a concept that is rather flat to me. And I mean, I'm not, you know, I know that Chuck said that we're not supposed to be judging this on its artistic merit. But I do agree with you that if the commission is going to sanction this, that maybe we should have a little bit more say in what kinds of art we want the city to, or to that we want to represent the city. So I completely agree with you, and I'm happy that you stood up and said your piece, because I was definitely thinking it, but I wasn't sure if we were even allowed to discuss this for this type of project. So thank you.
Commissioner Bossler.
I see that Executive Director Gluss has written speak. I'd like to defer to him before I make any comments.
Jonathan.
Thank you. I'm not looking to redirect the conversation. I actually underscore the value of you all having this conversation based on recommendations coming from the Policy and Funding Committee. I would only suggest that there are multiple members of the Public Art Committee. There are multiple members of the Public Art Committee here that may want to more clearly advance the larger conversation that came out of the panel and the Public Art Committee.
And
yes, please. Exactly that would be helpful. Could we hear from some of those folks?
Vernon.
Yeah, just one last thing. Tracy brought up the conundrum, which is that Chuck said plainly up front, and I thought about this, that we're not supposed to be talking about the content. And so my comment is really off base, because the content is not supposed to be part of the discussion. And I thought about murals in other cities that I've experienced, and some of them, they're all over the place, and they should be. It should be messy, and it can be decorative, and it can be marketing, designy, whatever. But I'm just saying, I'm being asked I'm being asked for my vote on content that I'm not supposed to weigh in on for something in an intersection that is part of like the oversight of what I've been asked to do as a commissioner, right? And it's being presented to us as art. And so that's a strange conundrum. And I wish that we weren't really burning up time on this, because why are we even voting on this if we can't vote on the content? Like, what's the point? What's the point? That's why my vote is ambivalent, right? Like, but you know, on the other hand, I want to move the process forward, but I don't want to just say yay and keep going, because you know, it's troublesome in a way, right? But it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But you know, there it is.
Commissioner Bossler.
Well, Vernon brings up an important distinction, and it was talked about a little bit earlier, but could somebody give guidance, Jonathan, whether you're the right person or not, on how that nuance works? Exactly the point that Vernon is making about the content specific nature of all of it. And not to undermine at all Public Art Committee, you all do a wonderful job. I think that these conversations are still very important.
Commissioner Bosler, happy to. I would like to defer to Commissioner Meza, who has his hand up, and then I'm happy to fill in behind him.
Yes, we looked at it in the Public Art Committee, and it was a consensus that, as Tracy said, not so much the art, but just the act of doing something like this would inspire other communities to do something similar. And from that standpoint, we thought it would be a really nice addition to that intersection. And I'm just honestly, that's how we looked at it, as a piece. It's acceptable, but as a seed for greater creations in other parts of the city, we saw value in that as well.
Commissioner Hughes, you had a comment to make?
A question for Executive Director Gluss. To follow up on what Commissioners DeCenzo and Meza have said, with the city's budget being so clear that infrastructure is going to be a large goal for spending over the next several years, is there a way of working with our friends in public utilities and in the transportation department to come up with a, how much is this going to cost to do this kind of thing? If this is, in the margins of what it takes to build a road, to fill a pothole, et cetera, and we can, as we rebuild San Diego's infrastructure, have right-of-ways like this that have murals that we can then put San Diego artists to work. And I think anything like this should be strictly limited to San Diego-based artists. Would there be a way of having our cake and eating it too, in terms of employing more artists, getting more art out into our city, and filling up those potholes that are so scurrious to us all?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to try to confine my comments because Commissioner Hughes, you opened up the whole conversation of art and mobility, the built environment, a space that we know San Diego is profoundly behind other large American cities. There is extensive restraints and criteria for placing art in these spaces. Christine Jones is actually our resident guru of that. Excuse me. So I think that is an incredibly important conversation to have relatively quickly moving forward. And it goes back to, again, the huge tranche of funding that is coming from Washington through the state that is going to include infrastructure improvements, and certainly our mayor's priority for improving infrastructure. We do have an opportunity to be more proactive and intentional in the way that we're including San Diego artists in that work. And we'd welcome to have that conversation sooner than later with you all. Specifically regarding this piece, Commissioner Meza's comments, this public art process is not dissimilar to the funding program. in that, excuse me, this is not a piece that was commissioned by the city. This is a piece that the city is asked to review. It is funded by the Downtown Partnership. I do know this is one of a number of murals that they are starting to tee up. So they're starting to really commit to a whole program downtown, which is fantastic. So to be clear, there is no financial cost to the city for this. This is a review process of, this is a review of the work that the commission is asked to do on behalf of the city is to ensure that the applicant has followed protocols that make them eligible for the city to approve this. So no, there is not necessarily a deep dive into the aesthetics of the piece at the Public Art Committee, though we know the Public Art Committee actually is populated by an extraordinary group of visual arts leaders in our community. So, excuse me, bringing it to you today, yes, this is affirming the recommendations of the Public Art Committee. The Public Art Committee is affirming that this mural falls in the guidelines of murals for the city. It is not an affirmation of the aesthetics.
Yeah, and maybe just to clarify further, this is considered a private encroachment in the right of way. So you think about other types of right of way encroachments people have, such as parklets and this and that. So this is, again, another process the city has working with Development Service Department to permit things in the right of way. So just keep that in mind as well.
Commissioner DeCenzo?
Hey, Ben, maybe you can answer this for me. I was looking through their application and it said that the project was envisioned by the residents of Cortez. Do you know what level of public feedback this project got, and if it was indeed approved by a number of the residents of that area? I mean, was there a lot of feedback?
I do not know. The applicant stated that there was significant input from the neighbors and the residents around the intersection, but that, honestly, I do not know to what level. We can take the word of the applicant and when he says it was significant.
Just as a reminder, as it's outlined in the staff report, this mural is this particular proposal is the longer term result of a as I understand it, from the application of a pedestrian study conducted by the Cortez Hill Active Residence Group. And the Cortez Hill Active Residence Group provided a letter in support of this particular project.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
I'm always going to pull the outreach card. So just to take our conversation in a different way, and again, thank you for this discussion. Downtown Partnership represents about 300 companies and individuals that care about our city. So maybe we also use this as an opportunity to better partner, to maybe appear at one of their meetings and help them understand the work of the commission, right? So I'm just going to see this as maybe an opportunity for further collaboration, for them to know more about the work that we're doing.
Thanks, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Bossler?
I thank everybody for the conversation, and I'm curious if it's not time to call the question again.
Well, actually, yes, that was a good conversation. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I would like to ask you all that next time, before I start the vote thing, when I say, does anybody have any other discussion or comments to make or questions, that would be the time to type speak and have the conversation so that we're not halfway through the vote. So please when I ask for discussion, let's do it then, okay? So is there any further discussion at this time? Commissioner Bossler?
I would just say that, yes, there's protocol. And I think it's also important that if any of the commissioners have something that comes to mind, I just think that we in no way ever want to quell conversation. I think our duty is to be transparent, and I've certainly learned something this morning. And I just want to say thank you to each of the commissioners who's willing, as hard as it is sometimes, to say, gosh, this doesn't feel right. Can we talk this through so that everybody understands kind of what our role is and how we're supposed to do it? So just a big thank you to everybody for the patience to have the conversation and get to where we're meant to be.
All right. Okay, so if everybody is satisfied, then I'd like to go ahead with the vote. I'm going to start over again. When I call your name, please unmute yourself and say yay, nay, or abstain. Commissioner Frank?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Blevins? Commissioner Bossler?
Yay.
Excuse me? Yay?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner DeCenzo?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson? Commissioner Meza?
Yay.
Commissioner Nwana? Commissioner Opstead?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Schonbrun? And Commissioner Whooper?
Yay.
Thank you. And my vote is a yay. Okay, motion carries. Now moving to Advocacy and Outreach Committee. Is there, Commissioner Hughes, would you like to share your committee report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would. It's hidden behind a couple other screens now. First of all, City of San Diego City Council meetings. Thank you all to the members of the commission who are able to join in for those. We've now met with all members of City Council and or their staff. First, a big thank you to Bell for arranging those meetings. That was always a moving target. You did a brilliant job getting that done. Thank you to Christine and her team and all the people over at City IT for pulling together the heat map and all the data therein. That's really crucial to telling our story to City Council, and I cannot thank you enough for that. And as I said, to all the members who were able to join us for those calls, thank you very, very much. We focused this year on our need for funding for this year, special reopening funds, and trying to drum up support for the cultural plan. And a big thank you to Janet and Jonathan for all of your hard work in those meetings. I think they were all very successful. At the state level, wanted to pass along that Californians for the Arts are trying to get $1 billion, that's billion with a B, in state funding for arts and culture. This is what Candace was mentioning earlier. The breakdown of categories is available on the California for the Arts website. And I encourage all of you to go to californiansforthearts.org/budget and sign a letter to the governor in support of that plan. I would also encourage you all to attend the virtual convening that's happening next Tuesday on Advocacy Day. It's easy peasy. It's one of these kind of Zoom things and you can set it up. Jonathan, maybe staff could send out the PDF link to the PDF of the announcement and the link to everybody. That would be great. Also wanted to mention and thank those of you who were able to attend the Trustees Connected event for the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. That was on Wednesday evening. It was so nice to see so many of my fellow commissioners and staff there. The mayor and Councilmember Whitburn both were in attendance and spoke very highly of the power of arts and culture and our cultural institutions to help us come out of this current pandemic and the resulting monumental depression we're all going through as a community. So it's always good to see the electeds seeing the importance of our cultural institutions. And then just as an FYI, I represented the commission on a panel for financial literacy for artists and arts workers put on by the Performing Arts League. Other panelists were Kim Heil of the San Diego Rep and Osborne Hurston of US Bank, and Jimmy Saba of San Diego Junior Theater curated it. So that was great. I love any opportunity I have to support our arts and culture community with their financial side of things and teaching them some of the basics that, darn it, everybody should be learning in high school anyway, but they don't teach that anymore. Anyway, that's everything from the Advocacy and Outreach Committee.
Pardon me. Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. We have on our agenda the Commissioner Engagement Ad Hoc Committee. Unfortunately, Commissioner Nuana is unable to be with us today, so we'll move on to our next item. Also want to note that Commissioner Brown has had to leave the meeting, so we'll move ahead with director's reports. Is there any public comment for this agenda item?
None was submitted, but if there are any members of the audience in attendance who'd like to speak, please raise your hand. And I'm seeing none, Chair Poutre.
All right, thank you very much. Then I will ask our Executive Director, Jonathan Gless, to go ahead with his report, please.
Thank you, Mayor, very much, Chair Poutre. Just a few updates. Excuse me. I also want to extend congratulations to the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership for their trustees event, and thank you to so many of you who were able to attend. It was a great turnout. It was so nice to see our recently departed colleague, Leticia Gomez Franco, there as a park executive director. In the space of creative economy, just a general update. We are moving forward to build internally, working with Economic Development Department, a one-year action plan on how we can move this general agenda forward. And externally in the community, we continue to participate in panel discussions. Today at noon, I have the good fortune of sitting on a panel about our creative economy study for the local chapter of the American Society of Public Relations Professionals, who are extraordinarily enthusiastic about this. And I look forward to leveraging the good volunteerism of these PR professionals to help us get the word out. So although we don't talk about it every month, the work is moving forward. The other thing that I would like to announce formally is actually I'm going to stop here and answer Commissioner Hughes' question.
Thank you, Executive Director Quest. I just wanted to ask, in the interest of creative economy and our economy, we talked about the budget for 22, what we have available, but I was curious what staff had requested. What was in your initial budget?
Well, I think one of the things that we had requested that just because of budget constrictions this year is we're very eager to move to a new software program for the funding program. Certainly not sexy, but we've learned that the existing software is, though it is good for the panelists, it's very awkward, I would say clunky for the applicants. and it's very inefficient internally for the various departments that have to interface with us. So we had asked for software, a new software program. That didn't make it in the list this year, so we'll certainly put it in on our list for next year. Excuse me. And then we always have to ask for new staff, as every department does. We asked for an administrative analyst position, and of course, the mayor and chief operating officer's priority was to retain staff that we already have. So that wasn't possible either. But those are two things that will be top on the staff proposals next year. Thank you for asking. The other thing, which is the brightest spot of the last 2 weeks, is we have a new team member. Not everyone has met, so I have the very good fortune of introducing our new Senior Funding Program Manager, Deanna Agostini. Deanna, are you on screen?
Yes, I am.
Good. So just a few words about the search process and how eager we are to have Deanna on the team. We did have a great number of applicants for this position. As you can imagine, I'm going to say for two reasons. One, certainly economy, but secondly, because I firmly believe there is a real sense in the community now that the commission is moving forward in some very positive ways, and a lot of people want to be part of our initiatives and efforts moving forward. So we had great applicants from here in San Diego, but from across the country. So we were delighted. At the end of the day, after 3 staff interviews with a number of our colleagues from across various city departments, we were able to offer and entice Deanna to the city. So we're delighted to have you here, Deanna. And if you could just give a few words about your background and why you chose to come to the commission.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. And it's a pleasure to meet all of the commissioners that I had not had the pleasure of meeting before in these past couple weeks. And it's an honor to serve as a staff member of the commission. Like Jonathan said, there is definitely in me a sense of serving the community. My background is in nonprofit, arts, international development, NGOs. I am born and raised in Italy, and I moved to San Diego 9 years ago. And so I've been working in Europe and before moving to San Diego in education, arts, and programs that really try to impact our communities. And so when I moved to San Diego, I was eager to do that, to continue that work. I worked for many years in education, 6 through 12, and then also moved to higher education, most recently for the University of San Diego. And at the same time, as soon as I moved to San Diego, I joined a small arts and culture organization, the San Diego Italian Film Festival. And throughout the years, I got to the position of the director of the organization. And I got to really see the passion, the energy, and the support that this commission provides to a number of organizations, big and small, and to work with the staff. And that definitely also made me want to join you. And so I'm really thrilled about this opportunity. Lots of work ahead and really energized by these conversations. And thank you for your hard work and looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Deanna. So Deanna's dug in very quickly, and we'll be working with Policy and Funding Committee for all of the changes that we're planning for the coming fiscal year. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Chair Poutre.
Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome, Deanna. Looking forward to working with you in the future. Okay, next up is new business for future agendas. Do we have any public comment for that?
If anyone in the audience would like to comment, please raise your hand. And seeing none, Chair Boutray.
Alrighty, any commissioners have an item they'd like to add to a future agenda, please type speak and I will recognize you. Okay. Great. Then next up is our speed round. Any arts and culture creativity experiences that you had this month that are noteworthy. I want to let you know that our colleague Commissioner Brown asked me to share with you his Commissioner speed round entry, which was Young Art at San Diego Museum of Art. And if I'm not mistaken, Commissioner Opstead, don't you have some students that are shown in that show?
You are correct. We have 5 student artworks, and 3 of those 5 were actually chosen for the walking exhibition, biking, driving that goes throughout downtown. So really excited to highlight some of the great work that's happening, especially during quarantine, of our local young San Diego artists.
Terrific. Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Opstead. Commissioner DeCenzo?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to mention, so just briefly, my husband loves maps and he loves planning trips. So I tasked him last week with using our civic art map to make a little mini tour of some of our civic art collection. And we drove around the other day and out of the 16 that we wanted to see, we got to see 10. So I was kind of excited about that. I actually got to see what was civic art instead of just what is architectural art. So it was kind of nice to be able to distinguish that. And it gave my husband something fun to do too. So I encourage everyone to promote that civic art map. I think it's a wonderful way to see interesting parts of the city and also the civic art that we have surrounding us, like literally surrounding us.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Just wanted to say it was exciting that mainly Mozart and San Diego Opera both did drive-in events this month. It's really encouraging, and I'm just really jazzed that they're both up and running. And I got to see a wonderful production of a rarely done play, a Harlem duet from Coronado Playhouse that was filmed at Onstage Playhouse. So I'd love to see coordination amongst organizations and a really great script done by San Diego actors.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Actually upcoming, and I'm always about the partnerships. I've been asked to moderate a panel for the LEAD San Diego Influence Program. I know Commissioner Opstead and his wife are very involved in LEAD. So these are the executives who have been chosen to participate in a really intensive 3-day introduction to San Diego. And so on the panel are David Glanzer with Comic-Con, Tim Shields with the Old Globe, Fernando Lopez with Pride, and then I invited Felicia Shaw to join us as well. So really excited about getting these executives to understand the arts and culture as essential, as Candace said earlier. And I'm going to make sure that they have a call to action to start thinking about volunteering and donating to our arts organizations in the city. And who knows, maybe even someday joining us on the commission.
Good job. Thanks. Thank you, Rebecca. Commissioner Opstead?
Yeah, hopefully Commissioner Smith is going to share that link. I would love to see that facilitation of that conversation. The new children's
private, right? It's private. They won't let you do that, but you can see if Erica can let you know about it.
All right, I'll reach out to LEAD, so I will do that. The New Children's Museum has been hosting a monthly Zoom, and it's an artist series of artist talks reimagining playability. And last week was David Israel Reynoso, and it was about interactive theater and the experience without actually having the actors communicate or speak. So it was a fascinating hour, and it's actually once a month. So if anybody wants to do that, I gladly reach out to me and I'll send you the information.
Thank you. Keith, go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you, Janet. I just wanted to acknowledge that that May is Theater Month. And the Performing Arts League has gone, with the exception of one live performance, it's all virtual, and they've gone from a week to a month. So look for that on your social media.
Thank you. Thanks for that heads up. I want to add that I got my first box from Turnkey Theater. This is a new theater group here in town where you have the theater experience at home. You receive a box with objects in it, and there's an audio piece that goes with it. And this was founded by my friend, Dr. Katie Turner. She teaches at San Diego State. So you can check it out. It's called Turnkey Theater. Alrighty, anybody else? Last chance. I promise. This is going to be it. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for a stimulating meeting. Want to thank Jean Isaacs for making time for us to come and for her to come and let us appreciate her. And also Kate Lingy for her performance, and we wish her well in the future as well. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and it is 11:04. Thanks very much, everybody. See you soon.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Everybody be safe.
Thank you.